Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Astro City Volume 2, Number 1, 3D Edition. Alright, today you need to have a pair of these 3D anaglyph glasses handy. If you don't, it'll be alright. Just pages will be a little blurry, but if you got some, it should work through the screen, I hope anyway. This is a reissue of Astro City Volume 2, Number 1, the ongoing series, the first ongoing series of Kurt Busiek's Astro City series. I was hip to this series like when it first came out, and I didn't even know this 3D edition came out in 1997, which was, I guess, about a year after the original print of it actually came out. I was definitely a fan of Kurt Busiek. Just like Alex Ross, I learned about Kurt Busiek through the Marvels miniseries. And then I started following him to other books because, for the 90s, he was probably the best writer for superheroes of that era. The other guys are still in the field, like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison and stuff. But Kurt Busiek really had that, classic feel, yet kept things modern at the same time. Now, if you've never read this series before, a lot of people seem to think it's a lot like Marvel's was, where it's strictly from the point of view of man on the street. That's not always the case. It is in this particular issue, but not to the extent that Marvel's was through the eyes of the photographer the entire story. This is definitely grounded by a man moving into Astro City, but it's still a story about the city itself, which is what the main series is, even though certain arcs will feature different characters. There really is just one character, and that's the city, Astro City. So let's dive in. Now, actually, before I want to dive in, I'm going to jump to the back for a second. To this page right here. This page is describing a guy named Ray 3D Zone, who apparently has been enamored with this 3D technology and printing technology ever since he first saw the first 3D comic back in 1953. So early 3D used to look more like this. This is a reprint too. It came out in 94 or so. It was packaged with the Superman Red Blue story, but it is a reprint of an old comic, and most old 3D comics looked like this. It was just the red and blue lines. It worked. So, like I said, if you got your 3D glasses out, this definitely will look 3D to you. It's pretty neat, but also kind of bland. You can see how this would be good for the occasional gimmick, but wouldn't really take off as being, a mainstay thing for comics. So, this Ray Zone character, or person, he's not a character, he created a technology to make full color 3D comics. And apparently this Wildstorm, there was a series of Wildstorm books that had this, and Max 3D edition, which I've never seen in person, something I'm going to be keeping a lookout for, are the first full color comics. So something pretty neat to be on the lookout for are these full color 3D comics. And this is done pretty well. If you put the glasses on, you will see in this book some of the pages are really striking. Now, I will say it makes reading text kind of more difficult. That would be my only issue. So when I reread this issue, I kind of read it without first I actually looked through it with the glasses, and I did determine that the text was a little hard to read. So then I took the glasses off and actually read it, but the 3D does work pretty well. So as I was saying, this story is about a man who has just moved to Astro City with his daughters. And there's these reporters, and they're kind of doing man on the street, what do you love about Astro City and stuff? And people are like, oh, I was born here and stuff. The guy was like, I don't have time to even talk to you. So, but they come to this guy, and he's like, I just moved here, actually. Today's our first day. And wouldn't you know it, they get a first up-front encounter with Samaritan, who's Astro City's kind of version of Superman. And he's stopping some kind of robot menace that's coming down. This looked really great in 3D. You've got the the lettering pulled out in 3D. This right here looks really good. Some of these pages are some of the best. So on their first day, they get this up close encounter with Samaritan, and they're like, wow, is that going to happen every day? And the guy's kind of thinking, surely not. That was pretty incredible. And you would think that these people would want to be like, oh, it's your first day. Well, what did you think of that? Blah, blah, blah. But they're like, oh, we got to get back to the station and report on this Samaritan sighting. We can do man on the street any day. And as we go through the rest of the day here, we introduce some more elements of Astro City that come into play as the series goes along. So we're going to get this statue of a character called the Silver Agent, and it says, to our eternal shame. And the little girl asks, why does it say that? And he's kind of like, well, that's a story for when you're older. So throughout this issue, we're also setting up plot lines for future arcs and stuff. So they're settling into their new house or apartment, and there's like a crash, like a storm is picking up, the window crashes, and they go to the roof to see, or they look outside first, and they see this godlike Zeus character. Again, this is another great 3D page, and check this out. If you check it out without your glasses, you can definitely see not only is this meant to be 3D, it's meant to like be bending up at you like that, starting flat on the page and then coming up at you. And it works pretty well. That's a great technique. So Honor Guard, which is the Justice League or the Avengers of Astro City in this world they live in, they fly off to, protect the city, or, I mean, it's hard to say because he is a god. I think his name is Thunderhead, but he's basically Zeus. And he's all upset, and nobody's really sure why. So people go to the roof of the building, the passersby. We also get just like some stuff going on at the street, and some of our street level people are stopping looters and stuff. So looters take advantage when something big like this happens in the sky and they know that there's nothing they can do about it. They're like, you know what? All the heroes are busy. Let's go steal a TV or something. Introductions to Jack in the Box, the Hangman, which is an awesome, mysterious character we rarely see, and he's hovering over a section of the city. I can't remember in the mini-series before this if they even mentioned the Hangman and his part of the city that he kind of overlooks. I did do a video on Astro City 1/2, which features the Hangman. Definitely go check that out. But I think this predated the 1/2 issue coming out, actually. We also get to meet the Gentleman. And these are all characters that we don't really know much about, but you get this sense of history behind it as if there was like 30 years of continuity into them, but not in the way that makes you not want to read about it. It's done in a way that if you picked up issue number 228 of Spider-Man and just jumped in and enjoyed Spider-Man from that point going forward. It's that kind of feeling. It's, sure, I would like to know what happened before, but I don't have to know. So still more of this stuff from the street. These are two characters that I don't think we get back to them until the second ongoing volume that came out in the later 2000s. So as I looked through this, it was interesting to see all the little seeds planted for the series that don't come to fruition for years to come. But not in like a way that, like Claremont introduces the third Summers brother and it just gets drug on for years and years and years and years and years. It's just like, here's two characters, and then eventually we get back to them. And you kind of forget about them. You kind of forget that you met them in this issue. Another great use of the 3D on the lettering. So the dad goes to the roof with the daughters, and they see some of the neighbors who I guess they've already met, because they strike up a conversation with her as if they've already been talking to her. And they're like, where are your boys? And they're like, oh, they're down doing their homework. And he's, this dialogue, which is more or less thought balloons. He's like, doing their homework? And she said, well, if this stuff happens all the time, and if the world ends, it ends. But if it doesn't, they still have school tomorrow. So he starts having doubts about why did they move to this city? You know, like what is he doing? What kind of danger is he putting his children in? So nice grounded human element. Look at this building coming off right there too. And you can see the 3D effect in the clouds. That's not just coloring, that's for the 3D effect. Same here. It works really well. And then again, you've got that same kind of thing where the lettering is kind of bending up off the page, and even there. I mean, it's done so well. The 3D in this is done really well. Hopefully it comes through in the screen. This page was awesome in 3D. So the Zeus character, or Thunderhead, Hold Thunderhead, his wife Hela shows up. Not to be confused with the same, well, I guess it's Helia. I read it wrong when I was reading it before. And she's basically calling him an idiot. I think she's like, they should call you Dunderhead. Yeah, they should call you Dunderhead, because she was captured by some supervillains or some sort, so that he would play into their hands and like attack the city. And she's like, you're doing exactly what they wanted you to do, you dummy. But I'm okay now. Honor Guard had saved her. So all that happens off panel. And that's a beautiful thing about Astro City. It's like, instead of taking this big action scene of the heroes fighting villains, some of this stuff just happens off screen, and you kind of get the result of it. And it works so beautifully. So they go off. This one worked really great in the 3D. They go off, and the next morning, you see on the street, people are just kind of like helping each other out to like pick up the pieces of the storm and the things that happen, the battle, the looting, and so forth. And the dad's, he's seeing this. He's seeing humanity at its best. Instead of worrying about his daughters and their safety and so forth, he's like, you know what? I think this is a good place. Here come the reporters again to kind of follow up on, oh, how was your first day with that craziness going on in the sky? And, you know, he's looking around and he sees his daughters helping, and he says, I think we'll stay. You are now leaving Astro City. Please drive carefully. And that's it. It's a one-issue story of this guy. We don't come back to him. You know, the next issue, I think the next issue is a first family story. And that's just how Astro City works. It's not exactly an anthology, because anthologies tend to not take place in the same world, in the same city, and so forth. But it is, and I keep saying that the city is the character, and the stories we get are people in the city. Sometimes they are heroes or villains, and sometimes they're citizens on the street. Sometimes they're the hero's lawyer. Sometimes they're the hero's house cleaner. I don't think he did that story, but that would be interesting, I guess. So here we got an Alex Ross piece, the cover done in 3D. That was pretty neat. So anyway, that's Astro City #1, and it's the 3D edition. So I hope it translates into the screen. I'll definitely be checking it out when I'm editing. I don't know what other titles came out with this. It says Wildstorm, so I'm gonna assume that there's probably a Wildcats #1 3D edition out there. I don't know what else though. Maybe a Stormwatch. I'm definitely gonna keep a lookout for this Max #1 3D though. I bet that looks pretty good. None of this stuff is advertised as 3D, so this is just here's a Wetworks #1 in 3D. So that's something to be on the lookout for if you're into Wetworks. And that is it. That's all I got. Astro City #1 3D edition. Until next time, read your comics.